People in today's world are very predictable. Have you ever wondered what things you can do to make sure someone buys? In this video, I'm going to show you how by applying stimulus response and an anchor, you can increase the probabilities. We are not here to make or convince anybody to do anything. I think when people do that and try to teach that in sales, it's very disingenuous. It's very, when I say this word, manipulative in a negative connotation. That's how I'm defining that. When people teach people how to make something happen, like when you're trying to force something, the world typically fights back. What I want to show you how to do is that if you have a product you know can help somebody, you know can change someone's life, you know it's in your moral obligation to sell it to them and get them to see how it's in their own best perceived self-interest, I'm going to show you how to use stimulus response and anchoring to increase your probability of sales. Okay, and I'm not talking about a 10 to 20% increase, even though that would be generous enough. That would be generous enough. I'm talking a 70 to 80% uptick in sales. All right. So back in like 1906, Ivan Pavlov did this experiment with his dogs where he just noticed that every time that he rang a bell, so he hit this little triangle bell, whatever it was, and he introduced steak. It's a weird looking steak. The dogs would start salivating out of their mouths. Okay, the dogs would start salivating when they got the steak. Now, before too long, he removed the steak, but every time he still rang the bell, the dogs, the behavior, the net response would still be the same, even though this was no longer there. Why? He anchored the stimuli to this. This now became the stimuli. He anchored this to this. He made this mean the same thing as introducing this. But the net outcome, the same behavior was like achieved. The same result was achieved even through the use of a different vehicle, even through the use of a different stimuli because of the anchoring. Okay? How do I know this? If you look at what stimulus response is, it's like when a stimuli is introduced from the environment, it produces a predictable pattern of response. Okay? That sounded really Italian, response. What was that South Park episode? I remember it's Viva la Resistance. I don't know why I remember that just now. It's because it's anchored into my head, that sound. All right? When you see a red light, so you have green, yellow, and red. When the light turns red, what do? You stop. When you see this shape, let alone a red shape like this as a stop sign, what do? You stop. The stimuli produces the response. Okay? We can use this in sales, believe it or not. If you don't know who I am, my name is Mason VanMeter. I'm on a mission to sell 100 million policies to protect Americans. That way there's more prosperity in the world and kids can quit growing up blaming their parents for everything they didn't have. It's unfair to the parents, even though they're part of the problem sometimes. Let's keep it real. So I just want to make the world a more beautiful place. I think that'd be a beautiful way to go out and end my life. Not that I want it to end by any shape or form, so if something ever happens to me, because I talk about some crazy shit sometimes. It was not me. I would never, ever, 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 ever do that. Okay? Never, ever. So how can we use anchoring? Anchoring is just associating the meaning between two different things. Okay? Like if it's how you associate a meaning or a feeling to a word or a person or a shape or a thing. All right, if I said Adolf Hitler, your gut instinct or your feeling might be very negative. It might be very negative. If I said a word like propaganda, the connotation behind that is very negative. The feeling is very negative, even though the word is just a word, like manipulation. What is the intention behind it? What is the intention behind it? So understand, you could be using anchoring already in a negative way. You could be introducing a concept like insurance. I sold life insurance, so every time I talked about insurance, people's gut instinct, they didn't salivate when I talked about insurance. I can guarantee you that much. You know what their gut response was, their behavioral response was for the environment I was putting them in? Scam. scam. And it was because they were still confused about money. People who judge insurance based on the word and the gut instinct because of what their parents told them. That was the stimuli that was fed to them to produce that behavioral response. And so once we know that, we can introduce things and rebrand or remake definitions. Propaganda is no longer called propaganda. It's called PR. It's called public relations. Manipulation is broken down into two words: helping or hurting. Could be called convincing. I don't believe it could be persuasion as well. Like, what is the intentionality? What is the purpose behind you wanting to persuade someone? Is it to, I believe if you're telling someone to do something based on how it's going to benefit you, that's convincing. It's for your reasons. If you're persuading someone, which I believe is what sales is, that's my definition of sales, is persuasion ethically. It's applying persuasion ethically. That, like, sales is about serving people. Sales is about helping people get over their own limitations, their own impoverished model of reality, and getting them to do something based on the reasons they told you they wanted to do it. They just don't see how it's in their own best perceived self-interest. Okay? Everyone does everything because of their own perceived self-interest. All right? Everyone does everything because of they feel like doing it. And sometimes they just need a little tip over the edge to get off the fence. Whether that's in yes or no territory, I don't care. I just want them off the fence. They have to give up fighting for their limitations on the things taking power away from them. The last thing, you know what I hate? There's people who have come to my webinars 18 times and they still haven't bought. For whatever reason, I don't know. Like, there's 10% of people who just won't buy. A lot of the times it's for secondary gain. You see this with cancer survivors. You see this with cancer survivors all the time. They know they have a couple different options. They can go get treatment and live. But what does that mean? They have to keep going through life the way it is. And if their life is already not full of interaction, like a lot of these cancer survivors, the moment they get diagnosed, their family realizes, hey, mom's not going to be around much more, grandma's not going to be around much more, so they start spending more time. And the secondary gain feels better, so they never go get treatment because they enjoy this more than getting the treatment and still keeping that pain around of not being talked to. They'd rather die and have their family come fuck with them than get treatment and live 10 years longer and not see their family as much. It's secondary gain. So people will hold on to things for crazy reasons. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. This is very Pavlovian conditioning, okay? So how do we apply anchoring into sales? Well, we can see what emotion gets people to buy. And you can just ask them, like, if you see a nice watch on somebody, they teach us in NLP, it's strategy elicitation. You can hear this from the predicates they use. You can get their buying strategy. Or you can like, dude, that's a really nice watch. Tell me about that. And you can start to see the physiology or the emotional state they get into, and you can anchor that. You can anchor that. Like, how does it feel when someone asks you about that watch? And it puts them in a state because now they're getting noted. There's so many different ways to apply this. Like saying the word stop. You can introduce certain sounds to anchor. Someone bought that watch. They felt happy. And you put them into that emotional state. They associate that meaning to that watch. And it's a triangle. It's what these two things are pointing to. If you can make your product, your service, or yourself necessary, like if you can associate the meaning between being happy about buying the watch and being happy about buying the product, if you can anchor them into that state when you talk about your product, more times than not, they will buy the thing simply because of stimulus response. This is the bell, even though you pull away the steak. Even though the steak is no longer there, you've fractionated them, you've put them into a repeated series of inductions, you've introduced this emotional state all the time, like a repeated series of times. Advertisers use this all the time. They don't go in straight, like Coca-Cola doesn't say in our ads, hey, go buy a Coke right now. No, they're going to keep showing you ads And if you notice, like the color's red. The colors red portray a sense of boldness, or something's on sale, it's cheap. McDonald's use this. Look at how many fast food restaurants use the color red. It's urgent. You should listen, be bold, be courageous. It's cheap, just do it. Just do it. Look at the presupposition. There's so many crazy things advertisers use. But Coke isn't saying, hey, go out of your couch right now and go to the store and buy a Coke. No, they want the frequency of the ads to anchor you. And what are their ads showing? People happy, dogs, love. Like, look at the environment that it portrays. And you associate happiness to their product. You associate happiness to their product. You associate love, being bold. You associate being filled up, being your thirst being quenched to their product. And next time you go out to the store and you see that Coke, you're going to buy it and you're going to feel happy. Okay? So if you can start, when someone talks about something and you see their neurology light up, you see a pattern interrupt that they throw you, that's what you pay attention to, and that's what you anchor. You could do that with a sound, a repeated phrase. If you look at what Martin Luther King did through his use of anaphora, I have a dream is an anchor. I have a dream is an anchor. All right? So use of anaphora, it's a repeated series of words, and it could be used to fractionate the audience, take them deeper into that feeling, take them deeper into that hypnotic trance every time. Okay? Things that are repetitive, things that are embedded, like it's very suggestive in nature, all right? Because what's repeated is retained. It's emphasized as more important in the brain. Now, you don't want to overdo this. You don't want to make the anchor less effective. If you keep using the same anchor over time, it's going to get less effective. Like in NLP, something simple you can do is like, do you ever remember a time when you were really happy? Like I'm talking about, you thought anything was possible. You just seemed to be so lucky. Like go back into that specific memory, float down and see what you saw, hear what you heard, really feel the feelings of being totally happy, jacked, ecstatic out of your natural mind. And you introduce the stimuli right there. And you have about 5 to 15 seconds of that peak state. You have 5 to 15 seconds of that peak state. And then you break it with a pattern interrupt. You could say, hey, do you smell popcorn right now? That's kind of the joke in the NLP world. Do you smell popcorn? Or does it smell like popcorn in here? And people are like, yeah, it kind of does smell like popcorn. And it's so funny that when you introduce that, look, it does it to me. Like, notice how you feel when the blue marker is reintroduced. Notice how you feel. Or like, have you ever had a moment where you just couldn't stop laughing? I don't know what it was. You saw someone fall on some black ice, like you're walking into Walmart, or like you just see someone trip and bust their ass. It's not funny, but if it's you. But have you ever had one of those, you saw it happen to someone else and you just had to die laughing? Oh man. And there's other times you don't feel so happy. You're not laughing about that stuff. So do you smell popcorn? But it's funny, comedians will do this. And if you notice, I just set the anchor up. So if you notice the stimuli I introduced, the anchor was my hand on the board when I started invoking that feeling of laughing, that feeling of laughter, all right, of funniness, all right? And it, like, anytime I pay attention to that anchor is applied, it makes me want to laugh. Like, it makes me want to crack up laughing. I can't even control my physiology right now. Like, go try this with, like, if you don't believe this is real, watch this. You want to go for a walk? Come here. Come here. Come here. What are you doing, sweet girl? Hello. Hello. Why did y'all come in here? What did you think was going to happen? I know. We will go on another walk later, okay? I promise. I promise. That's an anchor. Every time the dogs see me grab that leash, they automatically know behaviorally, instinctually, we're going for a W-A-L-K. Anytime I say that word, they know we're going for a W-A-L-K. This is so powerful. And the unconsciously, your clients are not going to be aware of this. That's the cool thing, is it's covert, it's indirect, it's not above the surface. It's not overt, it's covert. It's what's beneath the surface that tips them over the edge. Okay, this is behavior. And people are so predictable when it comes to their patterns of how they respond. Okay? This is so simple, you can use it today and watch how much easier your sales process gets through the use of unconscious anchoring and Pavlovian conditioning. You're teaching them how to unconsciously buy your product, and you're stacking the deck. Like, you were dealt a hand, you're just playing it to the best of your abilities, okay? Use this and watch how many more sales you're making, all right? So, look, I don't even know why I just went and did that. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I love talking about this stuff. Linguistic tools are my favorite thing to study in the world. If you can't, it's like, these are all my NLP certifications. I know they mean absolutely nothing to you, but like, when I see those, it just reminds me of my love for language. And I have this saying, it's like, if you want to take over the world, you have to take over the word, all right? Understanding language and communication is by far the most powerful thing you can do, next to listening to me if you're an insurance agent, all right? So, love you all. Keep being awesome. And until next time, go anchor some people, okay? See ya.